Hi, everyone. Dr. Fabiana here, and welcome to another episode of the Musicians Creating Prosperity podcast. Today, we're going to help those of you who may feel guilty about wanting more, whether it's in your career, your income, or any other area of your life. I'm going to share with you why guilt may be stopping you from scaling your life into the next stage, your business, anything you're wanting to grow, and how you can reframe this mindset to actually reach your full potential. Let's dive in. Welcome to the Musicians Creating Prosperity podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Fabiana, and today I'm going to share why guilt may be the reason that you are staying stuck. If you misinterpret guilt and think of it as something that you should not want and confuse guilt with a true desire and healthy ambition, this episode will uncover the strategies to reframe that perspective, to actually see how being ambitious, being driven, and wanting to expand and grow will not only benefit you, but instead it will help you expand the impact that you are here to make in the world through your talents and experiences. So let's talk about where this guilt maybe come from. Well, when this guilt comes to you from this place of feeling that perhaps you are being extremely ambitious, perhaps you should not want more. Let me tell you, I'm all for gratitude. I embrace gratitude. I believe there's a lot of power in having a grateful perspective around life. One of my favorite holidays is Thanksgiving. So I am all for being grateful, but there's a difference between thinking that you just need to settle in your gratefulness and actually then saying, what else could I do? How else could I grow? How else could I serve in the life that I have and the journey that I'm on? And I think for many, many reasons, we can get into a place sometimes of feeling that based on societal expectations, maybe our own upbringing, or just a fear of feeling greedy, there may be a tension between our desire for more and a feeling that we should actually be satisfied, right? So I want to talk about this tension that you perhaps have felt. I know I've felt it in certain moments of my life. I remember, especially when I was in this period of transition as a university professor, really having achieved what most musicians who go through terminal degrees and complete doctoral programs really want, which is having some sort of a stable career, a stable job with benefits, and just being part of a community like a university and just be part of an establishment, if you will. I felt a little tension in my own perspective because I had achieved the tenure track position. I was growing a very successful, nationally recognized position, or in the country, as being one of the top 15 music business schools in the country for 5 years in a row, being recognized by Billboard magazine. Our students were just growing, building their businesses, earning coveted positions themselves in universities and orchestra, symphony orchestras, and all sorts of incredible results. And yet I had a desire to expand the work that I was doing within the context of academia. And at first, considering building something else alongside of what I was already doing. And even, I had already built my first business, Superior Academy of Music, which at that point I was pretty much running on autopilot with the assistance of my husband. I felt like, why do I keep wanting more? Why can't I just be satisfied with what I'm doing? On paper, I had achieved so many milestones and I truly was grateful. But then I felt this desire to not only expand my potential and create more freedom in my life and in my schedule, but knowing that the information that I was sharing with my students, you know, was something that many more people needed. I had to learn to start making decisions out of a new level of perspective and start saying, what if I could actually expand what I'm doing within the context of academia and spread this into a wider net and impact musicians around the world? And I know for so many of you right now, you may be in a similar place where you are relatively satisfied with your career, but there's something in you that is wanting more. And I'm here to tell you that that's actually not a bad thing. It's not a sign that you're being greedy, that you're too ambitious, that you're never satisfied with what you have. That's a sign that you have something to offer that people need and you know it. And not only should you be aspiring to always reach your fullest potential, to not settle, but also knowing that whatever it is that you do, your skill sets, your experience, you've achieved those milestones in your life. You've overcome the challenges so that eventually you can turn that around and help others. This is how life works. I'm convinced everything we go through is for a reason. It's for us to ultimately be able to turn around and help others avoid the pitfalls that we had to go through. So I want to help you in this episode maybe reframe your definition of ambition and actually see it as a positive force. You see, ambition isn't greed, right? Greed is when you're thinking about something with a sole purpose of self realization and self benefit. However, when you are looking at ambition from a healthy standpoint, you can actually see it as putting your oxygen mask on first in order to put it on others later, just like we do in the plane. And if you are working from a place of burnout and overwhelm, and you're constantly chasing that next fire and putting out emergencies and kind of feeling frantic in the day to day schedule that you've built around your life, then it'll be very difficult for you to show up at your fullest capacity and serve and help others because you are still in survival mode. And if you're living in survival mode, you can't really create and build lasting, impactful things for others because you're just so uh, stressed out about just maintaining your livelihood and surviving, right? So if you are right now in this place of wanting more, but also feeling that tension of like, I should just stay where I am and focus on this and just be grateful. When you have this desire of maybe self-preservation, keeping yourself in a stable place, even though that may feel like taking the safe route and preserving yourself and just protecting you from taking leaps of faith and stepping out of your comfort zone, there's a fine line between self preservation and self sabotage, right? If you interpret this inkling for growth as something that you need to inhibit, that you need to tamper down, that you need to hold it inside of you because you interpret it as a sign of being overly ambitious or greedy, then you're actually sabotaging your chances of success instead of leaning into that instinct, that desire, that curiosity, and being able to say, what am I feeling and why am I feeling this? Right? Whether it's internal motivations or external motivations, you need to tune in into that inner wisdom that you have, that desire for more. There's nothing wrong with that, right? Because when you capitalize on that desire for more and you take the necessary steps to grow that, to water it like a seed, right, and help it grow and evolve, then you're going to see that ultimately the benefits of that ambition, that vision, that action that you're going to take will lead to great results, not only for you but for the people that you're here to serve. Ultimately, why are we all here, right? We're here to serve, right? Scaling a business allows you not only to expand your life, open yourself into a better position of perhaps more control over your time, control over your income, even geographic freedom if you want to move and live in other places. Having, the online businesses that I've described throughout this entire podcast, and if you haven't caught through, like what type of businesses I'm referring to, you can go and listen to the first 5 or 6 podcasts of this podcast show where I go into depth describing the beautiful model of building a high ticket music program and why this can unlock complete freedom in your life. So you can refer to those earlier episodes to kind of understand the foundation of where this is coming from. But ultimately, when you build a business and you focus on leaning into that inkling that you have from a place of curiosity and wonder rather than guilt and shame, you actually are able to serve and expand the impact of what you are here to do into many more people, not just yourself, and ultimately give back, right? So many of us have a vision of not only growing ourselves, but making a difference through the work we do, whether it's creating a charitable foundation, whether it's leaning in into a specific mission, serving a specific population for a specific reason. When you expand your perspective of ambition and reframe it as a means of expanding your ability to contribute and make a difference, that initial inkling becomes fuel for growth instead of an impediment. You see what I mean? Now, let's talk about the cost of staying small, the cost of listening to those gremlin voices that may be coming in your subconscious and pushing you to self preserve, which, as we discussed before, can actually be self sabotage. If you allow guilt and shame to hold you back, or fear for that extent, to hold you back from going in the direction that you want to go, and maybe thinking that you should just be satisfied with what you have, this is ultimately going to be the difference between those who succeed and those who stay stuck and always complain about their circumstances. So, how many times have you met people who are constantly complaining about their circumstances, uh, never satisfied, always wanting more? But when it comes to taking the steps for making a change, they don't take action. They just like to complain about their circumstances, but they never take action to change them. That the reason why that happens is because they allow these feelings of self-preservation and guilt and shame and fear to stop them from leaning into the unknown, right? And just, yes, taking a risk, potentially making mistakes, potentially failing, but then being able to learn from that and keep going. And so, for you, as you're listening to this episode or watching this episode, I want to encourage you to maybe ask yourself right now, what are those voices that you are listening to, and can you start identifying the ones that are self sabotage versus self preservation, and truly start making a distinction between the two, because obviously, as human beings, our brains are wired for protection. It's a natural instinct. Anything that feels unfamiliar, our brains are going to find many, many reasons to shut it down, right? If you've ever heard of the 5 second rule, right? This is the principle that says within 5 seconds, our brain is going to find a reason to talk us out of any new initiative. Like if you have an idea of creating something, starting something, or doing something, your brain has 5 seconds. And these are scientific studies that have proven that there's a 5 second window of opportunity between you create an initial like impetus for something and then your brain saying, yes, but you can't do it because of this and this and this and this. So knowing that we have a natural tendency to shut down initiatives just because of the natural self-preservation mechanism that our brains are wired, your desire and awareness to lean out of that desire, that instinct of preservation, and instead be able to say, what if I can move past these feelings of guilt, of shame, of anything that I may be interpreting as a reason why not to move into this step, or not to take this step, or not to make this decision, and instead break free from these limiting beliefs. This is how you're going to be able to avoid paying the price of staying where you are. You see, when we are looking at opportunities for change and growth and making, courageous decisions, it's so easy to just focus on the cost of making the change, right? Like, oh, if I have to take this step, I'm going to have uncomfortable conversations with people, or I'm going to have to maybe learn something new, put myself in a position of vulnerability, or be more visible, right? Open myself up to what other people are going to say, potentially criticize. And we get very caught up in the potential downfall, the potential downsides of making that change, of taking that leap of faith. However, I want to invite you to reconsider that there's also a cost for staying where you are. Think about it. If you right now could be working in a way where you have, let's say, more control over your time, more time to spend with your family, more time to invest in your health, more time to focus on your mental and emotional well being, more time to focus on creating income without having to sacrifice your quality of life, more time for your creative project. Let's say you want to release music, but everything you're doing right now is consuming your time, draining your energy. The ultimate cost that you're paying just for staying with what you have, it's very important that you make it tangible, that you materialize it and actually understand it. Because when you can see the difference between the cost of changing versus the cost of not changing, then you can make an informed decision. Then you're being balanced in your perspective and looking at the pros and cons of the scenario of whatever change you're wanting to bring into your life, right? But the problem is, most of the times we don't realize the cost of staying where we are. We only worry about the cost of changing, right? And whatever that implies, not just not just financial cost, but time commitment. Maybe again, you have to have some difficult conversations with those around you who don't understand. There's always a cost for making a change, but there's also a cost for not making a change. And when you can start being clear and focusing on understanding, what are you currently paying the price for? If you could be making $100,000 a year, but you're only making 50, right? You're making $50,000. You could be making $100,000. Every year that passes, the price you're paying monetarily is $50,000. You're paying $50,000. You are losing that money every single year for staying where you are. Same thing happens with your time. If you're working in a way that isn't efficient and that you're teaching or depending on income from gigging exclusively, and you're spending 30, 40, 50 hours a week doing that type of work, if you could be instead paying and working in a way where you monetize your knowledge, for example, right? I'm giving you an example specifically as it relates to what I really feel passionate about, which is changing the way musicians work and the musicians think about work, because that defines how you live the rest of your life. If your work is completely consuming you, then no matter what aspirations and ambitions you have, you will not have the bandwidth to make them happen, right? So it's important that you focus on solving the right problem for yourself. If you are feeling stuck in your life and in your business, the first step is changing how you work. But even before you think about changing how you work, you need to think about changing how you think and make decisions. Because if you feel that the way you have set up your life is the way it is, and it kind of has to stay that way, and you just don't think you can ever make it like different, or reverse engineer a different path, then your brain is going to find proof of that and will always show you that you're right. However, if you're able to expand that perspective, change the way you think and make decisions into saying, even though I'm grateful for what I have, what if I could do more? What if I could be more? What if I could surround myself with people who are doing that so that I can have a different environment that uplifts me, that nurtures me, that guides me? What if I could start learning new skills that I don't know at this point, improving my communication skills and financial awareness skills, becoming more literate financially. Everything that you need to ask yourself at this point needs to be centered around, what if more is actually good? What if I could expand my life? Because I'm expanding my vision, I'm expanding my perspective. All of the sudden, you will let that guilt be buried and it will not overshadow your vision, because you are now focusing on seeing growth and seeing ambition, and you're as a force for evolution and for impact and for service, not as something that is greedy or egoic or self-centered. So my call to action for you today is, where in your life are you playing small, and are you justifying yourself to stay there because you may be feeling guilt, shame, or fear? And what could you do to start reframing those stories that you may be telling yourself around why you want to stay where you are, why you should just be satisfied with what you have, and how you can reframe that narrative, right? Reprogram your mind to actually say it's okay to want more. It's okay to embrace abundance. It's okay to embrace a freedom and prosperity. And it's okay to be willing to take the necessary steps, right? To get to that next stage, because I no longer want to continue paying the price of inaction. I refuse to continue paying the price, not only financially every single day, leaving money on the table for not knowing how to work smarter, paying the price of hours and days of my life that I don't get to spend with those around me, with my loved ones, that I don't get to practice and do what I'm meant to do as an artist. Because let's be honest, we're in this industry as creatives because we've got a passion for our art, right? Looking in your life right now, where are you able to change the things that have been stopping you, and start setting goals with no guilt, right? Thinking about, how can you set a goal that, even if it feels overly ambitious, even if it feels selfish or ungrateful, you can now remember that the higher your vision, the higher your perspective around what you want in your life, even if you don't know exactly how to get there, the higher you envision what you want to achieve, you're actually going to develop a filter that will show you with more clarity how you can get to those goals. But if you are only raising your perspective this way, only to this height, then most of what you're going to be doing to get to that goal are going to be the same of what you're currently doing, right? The basis of the 10x frame, right? From the 10x book, if you've read Ben Hardy, Dr. Hardy's book, the 10x, kind of building that vision that is not just a little better than what you're doing, but 10 times better than what you're doing. When you do that, your vision becomes much more expanded. And in a way, the clarity of what you need to do to get there becomes more narrow and focused. Why? Because you have such an ambitious goal that sometimes may feel even impossible. And yet it helps you understand more, what do you need to let go of, what are you overly working in an efficient way, in an inefficient way, and how can you reframe that by focusing on higher level goals, and leaving any feelings of shame or guilt or complacency behind, and understanding that that thing you're feeling in your heart is for a reason. You are meant for more, and there's nothing wrong with that. So I hope that this is helping everyone here. If you have been maybe playing small or feeling guilty about wanting more, hopefully this episode will help you reprogram this perspective, understand what you can do from a practical level, also from a mindset level, and go on and thrive and build what you are meant to build, because you are here for a reason. Every day that you stay playing small, you stay doing what you've always done and somehow expecting a different result, that's the definition of insanity, right? As Einstein said, continuing to do what you've always done and somehow expect a different result is the definition of insanity. And I know you're here because you want more. And I would never want for you to let that desire to be tampered down simply because you're misinterpreting ambition with greed or guilt. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Let me know what your takeaways are. I would love to hear from you. Leave us a review and subscribe so that you never miss an episode. I hope this helps. Until next time, let's prosper together.